Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco, Dish Out on the Movies. Today we're doing an episode of Wishbone. Do you remember that series? It's about a little dog, and I think they have 3 dogs. They're called Jack Russell Terriers. They're one of the smartest dog breeds, and they're small. They're really cute. They have spots, and they've trained these to do these Wishbone episodes on PBS, and we watched. They do these shows based on books, like classic books. Like today, we decided to watch The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and or The Hunchdog of Notre Dame, just for fun, and.
The reason why we watched it is because one of Safi's choices for the 5 movies that she got to choose, one of them was Casino Royale, which, I haven't seen any other James Bond movie, and so if we would do James Bond, I would want to do, the originals first and go from there. Just like if we reviewed Sherlock Holmes, it would be best to start off with the old ones and then work your way forward. So, instead I was like, well, let's do something fun and simple that day. Let's do a Wishbone episode. So I picked this out. I think there might be a couple of others that would be Halloween themed, even though it is past Halloween. We did not do any Wishbone in October this year. Or maybe last year, too. I can't remember.
Probably not.
But I thought this would be fun to do. I've never seen it before. Safi hasn't either. So, Safi, let's get into the episode and the book story, I guess.
Okay, well, what it is, it's 2 concurrent shows. So you have the family, or the main characters of the show. It's Joe and his 2 best friends,
Samantha and David.
Yeah, and it's all about them playing, and I don't know where they live, but they're playing indoor hockey, which is on roller skates, and then of course they have a hockey puck and the nets.
Well, the show was shot in Texas, I believe.
Okay.
So I think Texas, and it's weird though because it looks like a really cool place to live. But it doesn't even look like Texas at all. Do you think it looks like Texas?
No, not at all.
I couldn't tell that, but apparently it was. So
they play. So the character story is they play this hockey game, and they have one of the players, this boy. He just keeps falling and messing up.
Nathaniel.
And nobody wants him on their team, and so Samantha feels sorry for him, and then Wishbone, he's in both, and so he's Joe's dog, and so he watches from the sidelines, and they're so well trained, they're so smart, he stays by the sides and he watches them play. And then he makes these comments, and, this reminds me of the Hunchback of Notre Dame, or something, when the boy keeps falling and they're all picking on him. And so then you go back into the Hunchback of Notre Dame world.
Specifically, he says, public humiliation, just like the kind of public humiliation that Quasimodo had to face in the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Boom. Transition.
And they do really well, and with these episodes, I always thought.
Sometimes, we haven't read the book. I haven't. There's a lot of them where we haven't read the books. In fact, I don't think I've read mostly any of the books.
I've never seen them.
But
I rarely see them.
No, I mean the real books. I mean the real Hunchback.
Oh, the classics.
No,
I haven't read that.
So I don't know how accurate it is. For one of the episodes, I think they did the Odyssey or the Iliad or both, and they changed a lot of stuff and made it really stupid what they did, and because, for time's sake, for convenience. So I don't know what they changed and didn't change from this story, but
it's just a little 30-minute television episode.
Yeah, they do a good job though for
They
kids. I really think that this is a top tier kids show, and I feel like you could just put on an episode at any time and you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, because, I'm sure all those Wishbone dogs are probably passed away by now, because I think this was the early 2000s, maybe?
Yeah.
And, but they are very trainable because they're so smart, and they could do it again if they followed what they did. And it was very interesting because they have these two stories, concurring stories. So it's the story of Quasimodo and Esmeralda, the dancing, what would you call it, the dancing gypsy?
Yeah.
And then you have the bad guy.
You think that she's got like STDs or something? Because she looks like the type who'd have STDs.
I don't know. No, I don't know. I think she was just a dancer. It's hard to say because
What kind of dancing?
Well, you saw her. She's flouncing around, and I don't even know how to describe it. But this is for kids too, so it's all appropriate, and it looks good. They have great costumes, and they do trick photography. Like they have a cast of extras, and they show
a lot of people do that, Safi. That's
I
not.
know, Marco, but sometimes they have a lot more than just a select few. And
No, not really. Not usually, unless they have a lot of money.
Well, what's interesting is at the end of every show, what they'll do is they will go off script. It won't be the kids anymore. It won't be the story anymore. They show something about the episode that they did to make it seem like it was really happening in the world of Quasimodo and Notre Dame and back in those times. And so I think that's a really interesting thing that they do because it's like educational. So the thing about back then is they had to, I don't know what the rule is now, since all my children are all grown up and nobody's going to watch any of those kinds of shows today.
I just watched it.
I mean those shows that are on right now, that are present day.
Well, that's because they suck.
Modern.
They're agenda shows too.
Well, so anyway, you had to have a certain amount of educational programming on your channel. And so, in order to qualify or be able to do it, I don't know what the rule was, but I do remember that part. And so I would say this was, of course, it was literature. It was a story with kids and the dog, and then they have the thing at the end where they show how they did the piece of the show. I'll just say what they did right now is they had a group of extras, and she took different.
I don't know why we're talking about this right now.
Okay, well, never mind.
Like, aren't we gonna go through the fucking episode,
yes,
or are we just
are.
gonna jump around randomly for no reason?
Okay, well, I'll let you go ahead.
Well, why don't we go through the episode? I don't know what you're doing. So it starts off with, let's go through each story at a time because they're two different stories, and so we should criticize one at a time. And so the first story is, let's go through the Hunchback story. This is the classic story, and I gotta be honest, it's a pretty good story, except for the fact that it really isn't, because apparently in the book, Quasimodo does not end up with Esmeralda. Some fucking faggoty-ass guy named Captain Phoebus does. And it's like, what kind of fucking shit is that? This story is supposed to all be about, the romance between them and how he saves her and she saves him. and then they don't even end up together. Like, that's just fucking trash. Like, who wants to see that? Like, it just sucks. And so, like, I really feel like this Wishbone episode was slightly better because he does end up with her at the end. You know, there is, I think there's a Captain Phoebeus, but I don't think that he's ever, like, a character in this episode. So it starts off with, one of the biggest critiques I would have about this interpretation of the Hunchback is that usually when I think about the Hunchback, I think about him climbing up and down the cathedral. Mm-hmm. You know, like in the Lon Chaney version, him doing all that climbing. You know, that's what I think of when I think the Hunchback. You know, I don't really just think of like, oh, he's already just up in the tower all the time. But I really don't know how they could have done that, you know, with any type of effects. You know, made a dog climb up the cathedral. So, you know, that's a slight flaw. Because, like, you know, that's a big part of his character. Right, Safi? Why don't you talk now?
Well, I'm not really very familiar with this story completely. I'm just vaguely familiar with it. And, I didn't know either that, Esmeralda the bad guy was going to have Esmeralda hung for, I don't even know what the crime, I didn't understand what the crime was.
Yeah, they didn't ever say the crime, I believe. Like, there was just some crime.
And then,
so,
well, I don't even know, even in the book, if it's really that.
I don't know.
We
don't know.
Because we don't, not totally familiar with the story. And then, of course, and Wishbone wasn't going to hang. It was just going to be her, right?
Well,
because he was running free.
First off, you had the story where, you know, Wishbone really likes her. And it's so funny to see Wishbone in this particular role because all of society is treating him like a monster person. But he's just this little dog, and it's just like, that's so hilarious. And I really feel like that adds to what makes this episode really good and funny. And, because it's just totally like, you know, in real life, they wouldn't act like that to him unless they're, like, evil, like, you know, those types of people, like, those guys.
Animal haters.
You know, like Yo Mama. So, anyways, he really likes her, and then she's kind of like, she's kind of like ghetto-ish. Like, she just kind of looks like the type where, you know, it's like, uh-oh, when you see her, right, Safi? Like, didn't she look kind of strange? Like, she looked kind of like, I don't know.
I don't know. It looked like she was dirty. Her face was dirty.
And she's very dirty from, you know, who knows what. I don't want to know. And,
like she'd been outside and she had gotten dirt on her face, and then she'd like wiped her face and it was dirty.
I hesitate to think what she smells like. So, what? What do you think that she smells good?
No, I wasn't thinking about how she smelled. Jesus Christ.
Well, no, I'm just describing the character, so I have to.
Her hair was all frizzed out too. They frizzed it all out, so it was real fluffy. And then she was wearing this kind of like bandana thing around her head.
Yeah.
And then she had like a gypsy maxi skirt, but it was kind of flounced out and like a peasant blouse.
Another thing that's funny is that, you know, let's say like in the Sleepy Hollow episode, in that one, Wishbone, you know, he had to play Ichabod, but he really couldn't like fully like say that he was in love with that Katrina girl or anything because, you know, obviously that'd be bestiality. Well, in this episode, it is like clear that he is in love with her, so I guess they're fine with bestiality because like that's what they were doing in this episode. Like that's what the story was. And but it's like he's not supposed to represent a dog. He's supposed to represent a person. Yeah. So it's fine. And then there's this other guy, and he's his master. And of course, when people hear the word master, they usually think about like S&M and stuff like that. But this is like a different kind of master where what's his name? Like Phallus?
I don't know. It's back in the olden days. It's
Phallus.
It's like all the Charles Dickens shows.
Charles Dickens.
Where there's in books where the kid is working for somebody and they're the master because they have some kind of financial hold over them, like there's been a contract, and I don't know if there's any contract with Quasimodo.
No.
He dominates him, so he's his master.
Oh, he dominates him, and he says you have to go up to that girl and get her to be with me, and you have to help me with that because it's too hard for me to do by myself. And Wishbone tries to help, and it's really hilarious because, she kind of rebuffs him and everything, and she's just like, screw you.
Well,
and
if you think about the original story, at least I know the visuals of it. He's got this big hunchback, and he's squat, and he has an ugly face and everything, and so she's rebuffing him because he looks supposed to be looking so weird.
She's rebuffing him because she's one of those people who judges books by their covers.
Right.
And
he's not very coverable.
And what he does, and so that kind of fails. And this is the hilarious part that I didn't get either, because Phallus, he comes up to them, and he I don't know what he does. He touches the girl, and then she just knocks out, and
yeah, I know.
It was so strange. I was like, is he gonna date rape her? I don't understand what's going on here. Why did he do that?
I thought he was, I don't know, it was like he knocked her out, but he didn't do anything. It's like he just touched her.
He touched her and she fell over. And then Wishbone's like, oh no!
And then they blame him.
Yeah.
And so he gets in trouble, and they're leading him in a wagon.
Well, they do the infamous shot of where he's tied up from all the different sides,
and they have
and
a chain around him.
Yeah, it's really funny.
It is really, it's adorable. He's so cute.
And then this is the weird part too. She comes up, and see, this is why reading the book would have helped, is because she comes up, and she's just totally cool with him, and then she feeds him water, and it's like, why doesn't this bitch just tell the authorities that he didn't do anything to her?
Because they wouldn't believe her. They would just say she's just being his friend.
Couldn't they have just showed that though?
She's not a good she's not one of the elite, so they're not going to believe anything she says. Do you understand? That's a classism thing.
Well, couldn't they have just showed that though? They didn't even show any scenes of her saying, "Oh, police! He didn't do anything," and they're like, "Shut up!" They could have done that really easily, but they didn't, and so it's like, well, fuck you, and so that happens, and then what happens after that? Well, that's the part where they just jump forward, and
it's not explained really at all.
I think the biggest flaw of this episode in general is how little time they have. Because, usually these shows, they're only 20 minutes. But this show is a lot more constrained because it's really only 10 minutes per story. So they really have to rush. And so they jump forward, and all of a sudden Esmeralda's going to be hung. And it's like...
Well, because she rebuffed the bad guy's advances.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, he said something about her that wasn't true.
Phallus blamed her for a crime of unknown origins.
Because it's a class of society, and he has enough wealth or enough power, or he's a man, or all three. They believe him, and so she's going to be hung. And so what happens? she's getting hung, and they're setting her up, and Wishbone jumps from one place to the next and lands beside her, and what does he do? He
jumps off, and this is another weird thing. He jumps off the cathedral, and he like fucking knocks her out of the noose or something. Like, it's so bizarre.
No, she took the noose off.
It's so weird.
Weird.
It was just so, like, he can't climb down. He can't do any of these human things. So it was kind of like, he just jumps down and saves her. Boom. But yeah.
They run into, with people chasing him, they run into the cathedral together, and they manage to evade them, and they're gone. And then you don't see them again.
Yeah, and so, like, I guess they get together. Like, that's what they imply at the end. But I guess in the book, it sucks too much to do that. Like, isn't that strange? Like, why would they not end up together? Like, isn't that...
I think in the story they don't.
Safi, get up. And so, why they don't get together is just a total mystery to me. In fact, I don't think there's even a version that exists where they get together.
No.
Like any Hollywood version, it's like, eh.
Well, they did have a Disney cartoon.
What do you know? Oh, and that one, he does not end up with her either.
I was going to say.
And it's like, so. God, these people fucking suck. Like, can't they do anything right? Like, why do they just suck so bad at making movies? Like, why can't they handle, like, this story is written in such a way where I don't care. There's been like 20 Debbie Downer Hunchback movies. Why don't they make a movie where it actually ends in a good way instead of just ending in a trash way like all these others have ended? Like, why can't they do that? Is that too hard for them too, Safi? Why can't they handle that?
I don't know. I just think it's not the original book.
Well, the original book she gets with Felinius or Captain Phony or whatever, and it's like, that's so stupid. Like, why would she not get with him? Well, like, after the whole story, that's like what it's leading to.
I don't know. Maybe the person who wrote the book felt that in real life or in the real story, the one he was writing, he was too, like, retarded and disfigured.
He was too retarded.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know what else to say. He was disfigured. Maybe he wasn't retarded at all.
But Safi.
And he was just too disfigured and ugly looking that they could never be together.
She's a dirty ass gypsy.
I don't know, Marco.
She is a dirty, stinky gypsy.
I don't know.
She has no right having standards at her level.
Oh, jeez.
She's got to have a Captain Phoebeus? Nah. The Hunchback is just fine for her. And it's a story anyway, and it's like, they don't have a single version? Like, that's just terrible. It's like, God, like, they can't even do the Hunchback of Notre Dame right. And so just that story, at least the Wishbone story, kind of ends in a good ending, although it is kind of like bestiality, what they're promoting. So, Safi?
Should we tell what the other story
Talk
is?
more about bestiality.
No.
Get up
not.
here. Get over here.
Let's
Scoot
not.
up. Scoot up.
Anyway, let's talk about the other concurrent story, which really is very bare.
Yeah,
and
very bare.
Really, the focus is really supposed to be on the Hunchback of Notre Dame. So that's why it's bare. But they play this indoor hockey on skates. This one guy, Nathaniel, is not very good, and Samantha decides to take him under her wing and work with him. And she finds out, because of the way she had this real... both of them have something in common. They both have divorced parents, and they live with one of the parents. And so...
She lives with the dad, and he lives with the mom.
And he's never had... His dad left a long I don't know, pretty early when he was a little kid, and never did football or any sport with him, and he feels like that he's been shorted and that he's not as good as the other boys because they've had that advantage, but he hasn't.
Yeah.
And so that's affected his skating and this playing this hockey. Anyway, so she said, well, I have this pretty deer. It's like a glass deer, and it's real pretty little statue. And she has it, and it's a symbol to her that before her parents got a divorce, everything was good, but then everything is good now because it's just righted itself, and it's just the way it is, and she's accepted it, and she's moved on.
Well, we should also say that there's this bizarre thing where Joe and David, they're very out of character.
Yeah, I thought that was weird.
Because they treated Nathaniel very poorly.
Yeah.
And then also, when he was training with her, they wondered if they were, like, hooking up or something. Like, they were, like, acting like, she's with him, yeah! Like, they were very upset about it. And I was like,
pouting.
Yeah, like, these guys, like, this is not their characters. Like, these are not the characters that we like. Like, these are the characters that, we wouldn't want to watch if these were the actual characters. Like, they suck.
And what happened was Joe's mother is the one that put the idea in their head.
Jamie Lee Curtis Jr.
Well, she's okay. She's not a bad person. Anyway, what happens is, like I said, she took him under his wing, and she worked with him like for a week, every single day.
Yeah, she
and
really.
They never. So she didn't call them or
hardcore.
have anything to do with them. She worked and worked and worked with him
nonstop. And
she discovered, kind of probably near the end of it, that what happened was Wishbone decided he wanted to spy on them for Joe and the other boy, I guess. And so he comes there. Well, Samantha has a skateboard, and so he decided he's going to get on that skateboard, and they show him riding the skateboard. Not like I've seen bulldogs train to do a skateboard. It's really cute, and they roll it with one foot, and then they put both feet on. It's really adorable. But anyway, they didn't train Wishbone to do that. He was just on it. And then it was rolling, and so he knocked into her, and her deer flew up in the air, and that boy watched it, and he managed to catch it by leaning over and grabbing it, and nothing happened to it. It was in perfect shape, and it gave her an idea that he could be a goalie, because that's what they do. And they lean over in all kinds of different directions at a split second, and they catch the puck, or they bat it away, whichever, but keep the other team from scoring.
Which is good, because it showed that, like, he could be good at something.
Right.
Like, that's with team sports especially, somebody's always good at something.
And it's something that none of the other players were good at. Not as good as that.
Yeah, and so the only thing that I would criticize is that, well, it is a very bare story, but the thing I would criticize most is that with the Hunchback, it is about romance. I mean, it is supposed to be about the Hunchback is in love with her, and then Captain Phoebus is in love with her, and then Phallus is in love with her. And so, like, that's not really in this story here with Nathaniel and the girl, Sam. So, that's kind of missing. Like, maybe they should have gotten together, and then Joe and David can pout like little crybaby bitches, because that's what they acted like in this episode. What do you think, Safi? Do you think that Nathaniel should have ended up with Samantha?
They weren't emphasizing anything like that.
But they're doing the Hunchback. They gotta have romance.
Not with that. It's
Why?
just because they just weren't ready for that. They were all real good friends. And so Samantha says, why are you? And she brought him back and she says, I want to introduce you to a new star hockey player. And none of them believe it. And she said, what's the matter with you? Why are you acting like that? And they say, well, we thought you were boyfriend and girlfriend. And she just laughed at him. Excuse me.
So it ends very predictably where he does a really good job and then that's it. So anyways, I would give this episode a B because it was entertaining. It was pretty good. It's just that there were those couple of flaws that, I think the big one was not seeing Wishbone climb the cathedral. Because for some reason, when I think about the Hunchback, I automatically think about him climbing the cathedral, like climbing up there all by himself really quickly and really impressively too. But they don't do that. So, Safi, what do you think?
Well,
are you done dying from tuberculosis?
I give it a B plus, I guess.
Okay.
Because we didn't mention at the end because you said I was jumping all over, so I kept quiet. They just talked about how they made it look like their crowd size was a lot bigger than it was. They took a picture of this group of extras. They took 7 of them in different places in the courtyard. And then they put all the shots together, and it looked like it was completely full of people. And, they were all yelling for the girl to be hung. And first they were yelling about Wishbone was bad. And then the girl, Esmeralda, to be hung, and she was bad. And so that was just it. And I can't remember what she called it. It's some kind of photographic technique that they use to make something look bigger or different than what it actually is. So I thought, so that's like the educational part. Although talking about a classic book, because they're trying to get kids to read classics, or maybe their parents to read classics to them.
Well, honestly, I don't want to read The Hunchback of Notre Dame because it ends very unsatisfyingly.
Well, I don't know if it's a very popular book anyway.
I don't want to read about Captain Phoebus getting together with Esmeralda. That's not what I want the story to be about, so I don't fucking care.
I don't know.
Sorry, this episode failed. Even though it was a good episode, it failed to get me to want to read that because I don't want to read some book about Captain Phoebus and
to me, it's
stupid
kind of
romance.
Tragedy.
Yeah,
it's almost like a tragedy. It's not.
It is because this stinky ass bitch Esmeralda is still a bitch at the end of the book, even though he saved her life. God, what a very, very bad character, Safi.
And nothing. I think in the book, nothing happens to him. He kind of just stays away in the cathedral. He kind of hides away, away from people, and they gotta forget about him.
Really?
I think so.
And so that's terrible. He does all that stuff, and then they forget about him. God, what a terrible story.
I could be wrong. If you all know the story and you could illuminate everybody.
In the Elephant Man, that's different because he was so fucked up that it was good at the end that he died. But this is different. He's still pretty functioning. So he should have gotten with Esmeralda. They should have had really gross babies together, and that should have been the end of the story. I don't know why that's so complicated. Even Disney, back when Disney was good, couldn't handle it. So, if Disney can't handle it back when they were good, I don't know who could handle it. Maybe Full Moon. Maybe Full Moon Features could make the Puppet Master version of Quasimodo. I don't know. What do you think, Safi? I mean, isn't that kind of retarded?
No, it's just you don't know what it's going to be about. Actually, just think about it. You have no expectation about what's going to happen, and
but
the title.
The crux of the story is that he's in love with the gypsy.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, he should be getting together with the gypsy at the end.
So he doesn't. So it's like, to me, it's like a tragedy.
Yeah.
So
a dirty tragedy because that girl's so dirty.
This is Wishbone. It's it's really a very positive show.
Yeah.
And they do all kinds of stuff.
Especially the theme song is very positive.
Yes, it is. It's very light and happy and positive and open and friendly. It's the dogs are so cute. They're just so fun to watch because they're just so well trained.
Yeah.
And it really, I mean, if you like, even that to me is an education in itself. To see the training that has gone, I don't even know. They probably didn't they? Did an episode of that where they showed like the training, what they do with dog training.
I can't remember because they show very specific things that are unique to each story.
One thing, and it's unique to that particular story.
Which is good. I guess if you added them all up together, you can pretend like you went to Wishbone Film School.
Yeah. So anyway, it was a very good series, and we tried to get all the copies of it we could. They were very hard to get though, and
I've kept all of them.
The books I've never seen. I don't know where you get the books. I've never seen the books.
I saw the books at my elementary school library, but I didn't see them anywhere else.
Yeah, I've never seen them at any store.
So
I'll look on eBay just for fun to see what they look like. Are they hardbacks? Are they?
No, they're softies. They're softie boys.
Okay.
Let's see how expensive they are.
Well, it's probably like...
Oh, there's one. It's like only $1.35. Oh, there's one where it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for $5.
Yeah, it's like what Goosebumps used to be.
So they're not very expensive. Oh, there's a behind-the-scenes book about the whole show. Wishbone, behind the scenes.
Hardcover.
Pro bestiality. Safi?
That must be a new book. I think that said $30.
Well, Safi?
Okay, so if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and become one of our subscribers, because we do try to do a variety of things and that we think people might be interested in hearing, or they might have kids or have relatives who are children who might be interested in some of these things that we talk about. And that's it. Bye, everybody.
Bye.